Good afternoon. It's Tuesday again, and it's 2 o'clock. That means it's time once again for 2000 and Counting, the program with the mandate to provide information, articles, and guests that are of interest to older adults. This program airs on CKUW 95.9 FM every Tuesday from our studios in the University of Winnipeg. I'm Bill Lesack, your opening host for today. In the studio with me is radio team member and co-host Gus Henne, whom you will be hearing from shortly, and a guest that you'll be introduced to a little later. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Gus so that we won't have any more problems. Gus?
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate that. Well, our guest today is Lisa Dawood. She's the owner of Candy Consulting, an events planner and publicist who works with nonprofit groups helping them plan events and publicity. Many of our listeners are part of other groups and organizations, and chances are you are often involved or asked to plan events for your group. Well, believe it or not, there are techniques to help you, and Lisa knows a lot about the things one needs to consider when planning an event, how far ahead, and also how to go about getting publicity for an event. Thank you for agreeing to participate in our program today, Lisa.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
Before we begin to talk about the main topic on the table, perhaps we can find out a little bit about who Lisa, the person, is by having you tell us a bit about your life prior to the date you finished your formal education. Where were you born? Where you went to school? Where you lived? Anything you feel comfortable sharing with our listeners. The mic is yours.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. It's really a lot of fun, actually, to talk about, I guess, my journey in life, too, because everybody has their own story, and mine started a long time ago in Saskatoon. My parents came up from the States. My sister was born in Kansas, my other sister born in Oklahoma, and then they chose to come up to the cold weather country and had me in Saskatoon. So I'm a pastor's daughter, grew up really understanding a lot more about giving back to the community. My parents did a lot of that, and have traveled all over the country, lived in Vancouver and Calgary, Edmonton, all over since then. So,
Excellent. How did you get involved with event planning and publicity? That's a very interesting kind of an occupation.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because I grew up helping sharpen pencils and set tables and all sorts of things as I was growing up in my dad's business, as well as my mom's work with the community. She had lots of women's programs that she would run, and as children we were just part of that. Just set up and tear down and meeting with events planners, as well as whether that's venue people or caterers, everything. So it just is part of my blood now, and it's really a great opportunity now for me to use all of that history of just being in lots of different environments with that.
Interesting. Are there people who are natural organizers, or is this something that can be learned?
I think the organizational part of what I do, event planning and promotions, it really can be learned in many ways. I've had to learn how to be an organizer. I think my bent is to be a visionary, and I love to look at new ideas and pull out of all sorts of things I see, whether that's on TV or things that I go to, events that I go to, and just I love to explore and think up new ideas and get creative with that. The organizational part is something that can be learned. There's a lot of great courses out there, books out there that you can understand more about what it is to put different types of events together.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Before I get down that, the name of your business is called Candy Consulting. What a sweet name.
What a sweet name.
Can you tell me how that came about?
Absolutely. And I haven't actually told you that I do have two fantastic children. I've got one that's 12 and one that is 8. They're both girls, and they have been such an inspiration for me moving into my own business as well. Excellent. And when I was thinking of a name for my business, this is actually a couple of years ago that it came out. I used to call my daughter Candy Girl because she just has this enthusiasm for life. And it always came out. She used to make posters about candy and sell candy to her friends, and would love it when Grandma would come over with a big box of gummy worms or something. And there was something about that energy she had, about something new and the different colors and the things that were added to what Mom gives her. And sometimes that means the meat and potatoes and all of these other discipline things that happen at home. But the candy is the fun stuff. And when I talk about candy consulting for my business, it really is about the little additions that really make something glow and shine, and it makes it fun and sweet. And we work so hard on our businesses and so hard on whether it's the causes that we really hold close to our hearts, or in this case, maybe it's a family event. We work so hard on our families that if we can add a little bit of sweetness to that and let people know what it is about our business or our cause or our family that is so special, that's something that really resonates with people.
Yeah, excellent. That's like I said, that's sweet. That's
You've got Gus speechless for
I've got
a
him.
change.
Well, my tag is strategies for sweet success. So I'm really excited. Like, this is going to be something, I think having you guys just even talking about it, it's really a lot of fun for me to be part of this.
Well, you've got us really interested. You saw me listening there. Usually I'm going around doing something here while Gus is handling things, but I was mesmerized. That was a great speech, I thought. Yeah, but I know it wasn't intended to be a speech, but it was. It was great. Obama would love you.
Oh, well, there you go.
I'd write his speeches for him.
Well, I certainly love what I do. And what I love about it is that you can see people shine when they start seeing their ideas in motion. There's something about that energy that is so attractive, and so it inspires others to live out what it is in their hearts and their lives that they want. What voice do you want to have out there? Well, when that starts happening, boy, that energy is really contagious. So I get very excited about that.
Well, the fact that you love what you do shows. It really shows, because you saw me here. No, you really did a great job. It's like I wish I could do that. Really, yeah.
Well, everyone can do that. I think it's really about finding. I was thinking about the show today too, and how so much of it is about what's in your life that's really important, and those are things that everybody has something in them that they're passionate about. It's about really understanding how to bring that forward.
That's awesome. Let's talk about events. I want to talk about two kinds of events that can usually affect our lives. One will be, for example, like if I'm part of a seniors group and we want to plan to have a recognition dinner for our senior executive president who's going to be retiring, and this will happen next month, and they've asked me to look after it.
Okay.
Where would I start in a situation like that?
My suggestion really would be to look at the nugget. What is the one thing about that event that is so important? Is it about who's going to be there? Is it about showing that recognition? Is it about understanding more about the person that you're honoring on that evening? What is the nugget that you want to make sure you walk away with?
Interesting. That's interesting you say it, because I tend to think, we're just going to have this because we also honored the one last year and the one the year before, and it's just kind of something that we do.
Right, and I think sometimes we get lost in that, and we also get lost in the details, and that's why anytime I talk to either a business or a nonprofit, or even just somebody like you're saying wants to throw an event for a group of people, we can get lost in the details. And if we really have a clear vision on what we want to come away with, it really starts to sift out and sort out the things that may not be important for us to handle for that evening. If it's in a month, again, to keep it simple, I think really there are ways that you can do an event like that can keep it very simple and focused, and also very elegant if you wanted it to be, or fun if you wanted it to be.
Is there a rule of thumb that suggests how far in advance an event should be planned, depending on how many people are there?
I would say it's not necessarily with the number of guests. It is the number of elements to an event quite often will determine how far in advance. I worked on, I was publicity coordinator for something called Break Forth Canada in Edmonton. There are 11,000 at this point this year, leaders that come to Edmonton every year. It's the last weekend of January. It takes a full year, really, from the end of one event to the next one in order to get all the pieces together. But that is 160 classes, that's concerts, it's such a large event that there's so many pieces and so many experts involved. For smaller events, if you're doing a dinner, let's say, and you've got somebody catering that dinner, it doesn't take as long because, again, you're pulling in the experts that can take over a lot of the details that, for some of us, it would take us a lot longer to make sure that we have all those pieces together. Sure. So it really depends on the event.
Okay. Well, when you talk about elements, what would an element be, or what are elements in an event?
Oh, Elements just basically are your venue. It could be the caterer. It could be the food that you might be having if it's finger food. Other elements might also be your sound. You guys would know about that. How do you maybe bring personalities into it? Maybe you want to have a celebrity come. There's local celebrities. There's celebrities from across Canada or all sorts of places that you could tie them in, as well as your guest list. You want to make sure that you are inviting the people that you'd like to have there, which again comes into invitations. It comes into how do you get that word out to your group. So there's a lot of pieces to putting that event together that someone like myself, again, keeping it simple for people that are trying to put that kind of event together, we sort through all of that and sometimes get rid of a lot of things that tie up the really important pieces and those important elements.
I would imagine, again, I keep coming back to this nugget, this important thing. I think it makes a whole lot of sense if you can crystallize why you're having this event.
Absolutely.
Other than we've always had it. I suppose that's the reason too. But what do you want people to take away with it when they've come?
Mm-hmm. It will really change what elements you're going to include in that event. It may really mean that you're going to be doing a significant slideshow of some kind, or it might mean that you're going to make sure that people are honored that are part of that person's life. If you know what it is that you want people to walk away with, it really clarifies what goes into that planning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think back over some events that I've been responsible for, sad to say, and I never looked at that. I said, well, we're going to have a get together and we're going to eat and someone's going to talk and then we're going to go away. And we did. I mean, it worked. We got together, we ate, people talked and went away. But there wasn't that focus. And I can see where that focus would make all the difference in the world.
Right. But you know what, Gus? I think even having that kind of event because I talk about this energy that people have when they come together, it would have had an impact on the people that were there. All that we're trying to do as a company now is really draw out and help you understand what are those pieces and how do we capitalize on that good feeling of all those people coming together. How can we make it even more memorable? How can they walk away with something that they will take with them and say, hey, I want to come back next year. Yes. Those are the important pieces too.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. Are events better planned by one person or by a committee?
I think, I've got... That's a really big question. But I honestly believe it is a team effort. And I believe that it's something that when you bring people together that are experts in what they do, they can jump into the role and they can take over and you have those energies bouncing off of each other. That's something that's so positive and it really does move that event into an area where it becomes memorable. It becomes something that is more than just you can't do an event yourself. There's always people that you need to ask advice and draw from, for sure.
Yeah. Well, one of the problems is that they do form committees, but they don't form I'm talking about companies. They don't form committees, as you're saying. You take somebody with expertise in this subject, expertise in that item, and put them all together. But what usually happens, they strike a committee of people, and they don't look to see what what they can offer to the what you're putting on the event or whatever.
Other than what they maybe helped last year.
Yes,
or
that's right.
Or their great grandfather did it, and their father did it, and they should.
But I'm glad that she said after that expertise in the various areas. I think that's important.
There is a key point to that as well, though. If you do have a group of willing and energized people that are going to come into that room and be part of a committee, what I've done in the past as well, and what seems to work quite well, is if you're able to delegate to those committee members to find the expert. Okay, we need decor for this. We need to have balloons. We need to have things on the table, fun stuff for people to look at. You put somebody in charge of that, and they become this, somebody that is able to go out and find that expert, and then they can work with them. That's an effective way to use a committee like that, because there is something about having people, like you said, that might have done it last year and want to do it again this year, or have their grandfather had done it, and they. That's very important, because I think for people that have been through years and years, especially when you think nonprofit, some people give their hearts and their lives to these causes for 10, 20, sometimes 30 years. Right. Those are really, really valuable hearts and valuable people that can really give a good space to bringing some of those event pieces together, but then draw on that expert.
Well, I think you said one word that was important. Delegate was an important word, and I think just from my little exposure to you, that I think you could enthuse anybody, really. And,
Thank you.
And I think that's important, really. That's what you want. You want a leader that is going to get everybody enthusiastic about doing things, rather than just blah blah blah. Well,
and that's why coming back, Gus, to that idea of this nugget, if you can give a vision of what that looks like to your committee, the buy-in of that event is going to be so much greater, because they're going to be working towards that same goal, and then the delegation happens, right? Because then you can let people loose to do the things that they're really great at, and it's so fun to watch that happen.
That's interesting. Very, very interesting. I'm learning stuff.
Anyone can do it. Anyone can do it. It's so much of it is just really knowing these little tips. And
do you find having a written out plan helps?
I am a little bit. For me, having a written plan, it's more of a big picture for me, and the written plan comes again from the expertise of people on your team, and doing, whether that's for myself. I've got some media background as well. I know some of those details, so I can bring that to the table. Having, as you get closer to the event, things like a schedule and a countdown is great, because then you're able to see your progress, and you also know that all those little details are handled. So yes, it is important to have, in my case, an overall plan, but then, like all of these different areas that you're delegating will have their own separate schedule of events, basically, that you're going to be working through just to come to that final day for sure.
Okay, interesting. Well, one of the things we want to talk about after our next musical break is I want to talk about publicity, because publicity also is a very major part of events, event planning and that, because there's no point having an event if no one shows up.
Absolutely. That's the fun.
Our guest today is Lisa Dawood, events planner and publicist who works with nonprofit groups and others helping plan events and publicity. I had mentioned before the break that we're going to talk about publicity, but before I get to asking that question, Lisa, I've got another curiosity question.
Okay.
How does one become an events planner? That sounds like a fun job.
You know what? It is a very fun job, and it's interesting how my career path has just folded one opportunity into the next that has led me to this position now, where I've got my own company and can do this full time. It's been really great. A lot of people do take the route where they go to school and they're able to take event planning or strategic management, that kind of thing, and then they move into event planning from there, which is a fantastic way to go. I've come to it maybe a little more here and there and pulled things together, which has been for me really valuable, because it's given me a lot of experience over the years in media, in promotions, in large events and small events. So I've really pieced everything together, but it certainly is a passion for me that I learn a lot through books, and I take courses as I can. So
excellent. It seems to me that an events planner is a very practical person. Like, you almost learn by doing rather than by theory.
I have found that's the best way that I have learned. And we were kind of joking a little bit off the air how I throw myself into things and sometimes get in over my head. But the beauty of that is that you sure learn very quickly what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I tend to find that is how to do it is better than the theory, and having done it is better. I'd rather have a brain surgeon who has years of operating experience rather than somebody who just learned from a textbook how to do it.
Well, you know what's interesting? Sometimes when I make it through an event or something that I've taken on, and this is throughout the years, and I'll go back to the textbook and I'll say, what is it about that I need to learn, and or what is it that will pull me forward in this area or in that area? And it's been really valuable for me to even bounce off of other either event planners or other people that just do what they do so well in the events industry that I've now been able to apply some of that to what I do today.
That's excellent. That's excellent. And that's probably a very good way to look at it. Combine both the academic side and the theoretical side.
You can never get away from books. Yeah, never get away from learning more. That's for sure.
A pity. I guess that's why I never became a brain surgeon.
Oh yeah. We'll leave that to some others, I suppose.
Yes, I think so too.
Thank you. Moving right along, let's talk about publicity. One of the things that events, by definition, are things that happen that we want people to come to. Sometimes it's very few people, to being as little as a family, like for a family reunion or family gathering. But sometimes it's much more massive, as you talked about that event where 11,000 people participate in. So how does one go about determining what you need for publicity, number one, and then how do you get it? What do you do for it?
Again, it comes down to what the point of the event is. There's a lot of different avenues people can use as far as getting the word out. Getting the word out can be as simple as talking to everybody in your family and telling them to tell other people in the family. So it can be as simple as an email that goes out or a phone call. If you want to move into something more sophisticated, it's incredible now the opportunities that we have for communication with each other. And my family likes to write letters. My mother writes letters, still handwritten letters, and it's a beautiful way for her to communicate. She'll send out letters to invite people to things. Just beyond that, if you wanted to expand that beyond just your family or a group of friends or maybe a small community of people, emails, there's other media if you wanted to get out into the newspapers. Typically with an event, you've got a date, you've got a time, and you've got a venue that people need to show up to. Those are really important pieces for people to understand. And again, clarity is a really strong key in that. There's people that want to know what you're doing, and that becomes something that is important to remember as you're talking to people about it. They want to know what's up and how come you're excited about this. So let's say you're involved in some kind of a charity that you might have been involved for a long time, and they've asked you to put on some kind of a gala event, let's say, for that charity. Go into it with the assumption that people really want to know, and you want to give them this gift of knowing about this event, because if people don't know, they're not going to show up, like you said. So it might mean talking to your local media. Maybe you want to come into a radio station like this and talk to people and see if it resonates with them, if they want to talk about it on the air. Maybe there's opportunities to write an article in a newspaper about the cause that you really want to talk about. So then you put your additional information about the event in that article as well. Maybe there's other opportunities that you can be on TV. There's a lot of shows that are looking for content too, depending on the cause. You could go that avenue as well. You can tie into other events. Maybe there's other people or businesses that have invested or have sponsored events like yours, and it's a great opportunity for you to talk to them about how to take that passion and their vision further in those areas as well.
Okay. Everybody wants to be on radio or in a newspaper. How actually would someone go about doing that?
Okay.
Because yeah.
How would they do that? Well, you know what? So much of it I think when I was younger, I felt it was so complicated to be talking to people in the
Yes.
media. What I understand now is that it's really about relationships. It's about making a phone call, and it's about telling people what's on your plate and whether that's something that they'd like to be interested in talking about. More often than not, what I found 95% of the time, even if the person that you're talking to isn't the person that you need to contact, or they may not be interested in what it is that you're talking to them about, they will refer you to somebody that you could further that conversation. So making a phone call, it might be as easy as looking on the internet or looking in the phone book for a list of the media outlets in your area. And after doing that, you make a list, you make phone calls, and it's like a treasure hunt, right? You're putting out the feelers and seeing what's out there, and some people will choose to talk about it, others won't. But there's so many opportunities for people to get involved, and also the idea of making what you're trying to accomplish into a newsworthy story. It could be something as
interesting,
to bring out that cause and to be able to articulate that in a story format. It really draws people in, and it gives them that opportunity to engage with you. Once they hear a story, it also is memorable, and then they'll remember to come to your events as well.
Sure. That kind of makes sense, because I guess people aren't that, they're interested in what it is and where and what time, but to engage them in something about that, like a story makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been hearing, I guess some of these ads on the radio specifically, because I'm in my car a lot, and that talk about things that happen in people's lives, and then they relate back to the charity, and not for a specific event, but to a charity, but that story has piqued my interest, and it shows me what it is that they're doing.
Absolutely. And again, it comes down to that nugget of what it is that you want to accomplish with this event, because publicity in and of itself needs to have some roots. It's got to have something that you're wanting to get across to the people that you're talking to. So having a story or just a piece that you can draw people out, you can bring in really some amazing stories. If you think of people that have been involved with organizations for 10, 20, 30 years, well, there's all sorts of stories happening there. And that's exciting for me to hear them personally. I can imagine for the audience that you're wanting to reach, to bring to the event. It's really valuable. And that also is something that media will pick up on, because it is something that, whether that be traditional media, or you can also go to businesses, or you can go to associations that do newsletters. It's very easy for you to, maybe draw up a one-page small story and ask them to publish it in their next newsletter. Those are really great opportunities to reach your audience and get them to come to your event. It's really a lot of fun that way. And the other part of that is that you're creating relationships. It's something that happens over time.
So you're suggesting that it's easier to develop a relationship and then build on that later on for an event down the road, rather than saying, oh, I've got an event next week, I need to get some publicity on it, I better phone the radio station and see what I can get.
I bet you every listener that you have out there has done that at one time or another, where all of a sudden something's thrown on your plate and you're like, holy moly, I got to get this thing out there, and you just try to talk to people about it. But when you do that and you're in that anxious state of needing to get the word out, sometimes it becomes the relationship is secondary, and people can read that. They understand that you're just there to get a quick word in the newspaper. Really being able to tell people about, like you say, tell people about who you are, where have you come from, why is this important to you. Those are the kinds of moments that you need to take with the media, or maybe with that association that you really want to get your story in their newspaper. Those are really valuable relationships for sure.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. This is most amazing, and most interesting. I'm learning so much more, which is great. Has the internet helped in terms of creating or generating publicity?
That's an interesting question. I was doing some research on that, just even in the last week, because it has been interesting to me to see. I really have a heart for traditional media, and I love the tangible aspect of holding a newspaper or a magazine, or I love publishing. Like, I love the idea of having something in your hands. That said, teaming that with some of these new opportunities online, whether that means blogging or sending out email blasts, or connecting with people on whether that's social networks like Facebook or some of these other opportunities. If you can team those two, can you imagine how dynamic that would be? It has changed immensely, and I think not just the younger population is taking on some of the opportunities with email and blogging, and everybody is, and it's becoming much more commonplace even for people to get the word out that way as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that there's a minimum amount of time that a person needs to hear about an event before it clicks that they want to do something about it?
Sometimes I say it's not necessarily about the time, but it's the numbers of times that they might hear about that event. And for me, I feel even if it's 7-10 times that you're able to get it in their ears. I know that sounds like a lot, but it might just be a word from another friend. It might be an email or a reminder. It's a good rule of thumb just to make sure that you've said it more than 5 times, and that's something that could be through the mail. It could, lots of different opportunities to tell people about your event.
Well, there's some things that are really important. I know that when we were doing our annual Christmas party, on the day that or even a week before the party, we booked for the next year because somebody else might book in at that particular time. So there's that type of thing that you have to make sure that you do that well ahead of time. And of course, that's one thing that if I know that you would take care of, because I can tell by what you've said already. And
yes.
And you've created enthusiasm right here in Gus and I, and what you've said is really important, I think, to people who are planning something. And I I just had a party, but it's too late now. But next party. Next party.
Oh, there's always opportunities for parties. Goodness. You can't just have one a year.
I don't. I usually have a couple barbecues a year, big ones.
Oh, there you go.
And
you go.
A few other parties, big ones.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Just at home,
That's neat.
That's
but
great.
It takes a lot of planning, even for something like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think, like you say, too, I think there's something about the details that go into that planning for the next year, or leading up in all of those, like I was talking about, those elements of putting this event together. I also know that if you tell people too soon, like if you tell them this year, they're probably not going to remember your date a year down the road. No. So there is that spacing as far as, when I say tell them, whether that's 7 to 10 times, well, maybe you're telling them in your website, if you've got a cause or a nonprofit that you're working with, you tell them in the website and you make it available. But then really, if you're able to do that big push to let people know what the date is and when they need to be there and how to tell their friends, that can happen, whether that means 3 months before, a month before, and then obviously that next, the 2 weeks before that you give a reminder. There's a lot of, that kind of spacing that happens as well.
Well, there's one thing too, is commitment. Once you've booked that, like we booked it, then there's a commitment. Then from then on, we decide when we do everything along the way. But we've got the important thing done, and I think that's what you have to plan on.
That's right.
And you've said that already.
Well, and that commitment is also what creates that energy, because
Yes.
then all of a sudden, all of those pieces have to start to fall into place because you've committed, that, and also letting people know about it is, again, that accountability that you'll pull this off, and it's going to be fantastic. So,
Yeah.
Or not pull it
or
off.
not. Do you have a story for us, Gus?
Sorry, around here, I ask the questions.
We'll get to that later.
And an interesting comment you made earlier had it, and it just kind of went by me for the moment. But see, people want to hear about the event. I often tend to think that I've got to sell them on the event, that I'm going to beat it into them that this is happening. But I think you're right when I stop to think about it. People want to hear about, and either they're interested or they're not.
Right.
You can't control that. But you want to make it as easy as possible for them to hear about the event and to make a decision whether they should come or not.
Yeah. and as engaging. There's ways to present that message that you're not apologetic about inviting them to, whether that's a dinner or if that's a golf tournament or if that's whatever that is, that you want to be involved in this because you're going to get a lot out of this. And whether that means the message that you're going to give them on that night, the fun you're going to have, or the music you're going to hear, you want to have this as part of your memory bank because this is so important and so much fun. And sometimes events will have a more serious nature. They're not always just about balloons and a party atmosphere. Sure. Sometimes they really have a message to tell. Mm-hmm. And again, not to be apologetic, to say that for you to come to this event is going to somehow impact your life, that is going to make a difference in your life. Those are the pieces that people want to hear. Interesting,
because oftentimes I think we get bogged down in saying that the event is for the organization, when in reality the event is for the people who are coming to the event.
Absolutely.
And the focus needs to be on them rather than on the event.
Absolutely. And that's where your impact is going to happen. Is if you're focusing on that audience that's going to be sitting there that night or having fun that night or listening to that message, that's where you're going to, for the next year and the year after that, you're going to have people invested in whatever it is that you're trying to get across. Okay.
Let's go back to the topic of publicity again. Mm-hmm. And are there things that one can do to create publicity? I mean, there obviously is an event. You have an event. But to talk about, are there other things that can be done either parallel with an event or tied together with an event that can, of themselves, naturally or symbiotically create publicity?
Yes. Well, there's some interesting lists, I guess, that people have made on what it is to get the word out, and if you have something important to say, that there's ways to say it. Mm-hmm. If you don't mind, maybe I'll read through some of those. I think there's some neat ideas. You can run a contest. Maybe there's people in your organization, you can build a contest around the message that you're trying to get across, or you can have a contest even for the event. Maybe you want to give tickets away and have a special evening that people can come to it, but it's a way of really generating that excitement for the event. So maybe if it is a music, let's say a CD launch, well, maybe you're giving a CD and you're bringing them in a limo and you're giving them perfume and flowers when they come. Well, that's a really exciting way to get the publicity out about the event. There's exhibitions. You can put things together just to highlight what it is that you're trying to, again, what your message is going to be. Maybe there's sponsorships that you can have for either a different events, or maybe you want to be involved in an organizational way that your business might want to help promote what's happening in a nonprofit, for example. Let's see, you could write articles. I think we had talked a little bit about the newsletters. There's a great way to, if you're a story writer, there's all sorts of people that are looking for stories from you. And sometimes that's as easy as searching out who does organizational newsletters. What kind of organizations are out there that would be talking about what it is that you're wanting to talk about? That can be as easy as going on Google and, Googling your cause as well. Let's see, maybe you want to talk to employees. Maybe there's people in your company that would be interested. If they have a relationship with you, let's say outside of your cause or what it is that event that you want to invite them to, maybe there's a way that you can talk to employees, or maybe in some cases your boss or networks through our business networks, that they can be involved. And again, getting them really excited about that. We talked a little bit about the new technology. If you wanted to go into setting up a blog, or if you want to tie into websites that you can offer content for their websites, as easy as maybe even advertising, you can put out an ad. Yeah. There's a lot of affordable spaces that you can get advertising as well.
Interesting. There's a wide range of things.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't even cost anything. And I think sometimes we feel that publicity means that you have to invest thousands of dollars to get the word out. That's not the case. Yeah. And there's a lot of great people, even in the city here, that are willing to get your story out.
Yeah, that's interesting. If got a whole bunch of things running through my head at the same time, which isn't good because you only want to have one thing come out at a time. If a person were to hire an event planner like yourself, does one just turn everything to the event planner and then you sit back and watch the event happen? Is that what you do?
Well, I would hesitate working with clients like that because it's so much more fun to work in conjunction with the people that are putting the event on. I need to hear the heart of the people that I'm working with, and I need to know again what the point is and why are we there, and also to again create that relationship with these people. It doesn't mean necessarily that that the people that we work with or the organizations that we work with have to have their hands in everything and be overwhelmed by that. But keeping that communication open with the people that we work with is so important, and having their input. Like I say too, there are years and years of people have invested years of their lives in some of these organizations or businesses. I want to hear that heart and know what it is we want to draw out from that.
Okay, so it's not as simple as just hiring somebody to come in, put the event on, and we just show up.
Well, it really, again, depends on the event. It depends on, if it's something that we just want to put a dinner on and you guys want to show up and I can talk to you beforehand, then that's great too. Yeah. But certainly I really enjoy the opportunities for me to get to know where either the business or the family or the organization has come.
Sure. In other words, what you're saying is you like to work with your clients to make whatever they want happen.
Absolutely, that's right. And I think there's a real importance to that. I think it allows us to run the event the way that you'd like us to run that event, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess that makes sense. I was looking for an easy out, for.
Now, if I was planning your birthday, Gus, then you can just, you can sit back and you just show up. But
where were you when I was having my birthday last
week? We have to throw another party for you. Maybe that's the thing, hey?
The penultimate one, yes. or something like that. Lisa, if someone wanted to get in touch with you in regards to either talking to you further about event planning, how could they do that?
If I could give an email address, I think that would be the best way to get a hold of our team. It would be info, INFO, at candyconsulting.ca.
Oh, okay.
Candy is with a Y?
CANDY Consulting. Yep.
Consulting.
Perfect. Yeah.
Do you want to give that again, just so people have a chance to write it down now, because sometimes we give a phone number and people are scrambling for the pen. So if you would again.
Absolutely. And actually, could I suggest maybe that if they gave you guys a call, you would have that information on hand as well?
Would we remember that?
Would
Bill?
you remember it?
I'll try.
They'll do their best.
You notice how well I play the music.
I'd already forgotten.
I'll trust you with that one. Okay, so the address would be info, INFO, at candyconsulting.ca.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Is there anything else that you want to say that I haven't asked in regards to just the whole event planning or publicity thing we talked about today that might be helpful or useful to people?
Well, I think when I was thinking a lot about coming on the show too, I was really feeling like a message that I love to get across is just really knowing yourself well and knowing where you like to be involved and be invested in. And everybody has a unique space to fill in this world. And there's always an audience for what you have to say. And there's never a time when we should lose our voice in that. That there's just so many things that even if it isn't an event, that it might be just something that you need to say or get out to the people that are around you, or it might not even be a business or an organization, but for you personally, how do you say those things? And for us to really feel that confidence to have our voice. And that's, I'm quite passionate about just seeing people have that opportunity to tell their own story. It's a lot of fun when people start doing that, and a lot of energy around it.
You majored in philosophy, did you? That was great. Actually, that was great. That would inspire people. Really, that was very inspirational, I thought.
Well, it comes out of experience, I think, too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm enthralled really with the whole program today. It's been great.
It's been very informative, and I think it's an area that we often overlook. And like I say, I get roped in time and time again to plan events, but it's usually invariably with very short notice. And then you're scrambling, and you pull it off because it's amazing how things do come together.
Absolutely.
When everybody has this commitment and this focus on doing something, but then you're, phew, am I glad it's over?
Right. Right.
But you kind of sometimes wish people would think further ahead. It's like we're surprised Christmas comes every year.
Yeah, but there's one thing, Gus. There's nothing that makes a man more productive or a woman more productive than the last moment.
Absolutely. And more focused. Eh?
More focused is right.
Deadlines are great.
Yep. They are. I don't recommend it.
I think the beauty is if you can learn from those deadlines and then push that a little forward each time, and become a little bit more focused each time, the events just will get better and better.
That's awesome. Wow. Can you believe how fast that time has gone, Bill?
It's gone pretty fast. We still have a few more minutes.
Do we still have a few more minutes?
We've got about 35 seconds.
Well, in that case, I will read the next little bit a little bit more slowly. Will that work?
we had a. I don't know if you ever heard those the guys. They do a comedy act where one guy talks real slow and the other talks real fast, and it's really quite amusing. We actually had their CD on our program a couple years ago.
Oh, interesting.
It was really interesting.
Never heard. Do you recall their names?
No, I can't. But I know Tom, my friend Tom Kyle, who visited us last week.
Yes.
I think he has it.
Oh, that would be interesting.
But it is interesting.
That's
helped to fill a little time.
That would be amazing.
Gus.
Well, here it is, almost 3 o'clock. The last hour has gone by extremely quickly, and this is our program for another day. You've been listening to the 2000 and Counting program, brought to you every Tuesday from 2 to 3 p.m. from the University of Winnipeg on CKUW 95.9 FM campus and community radio. I'm Gus Henne.
And I'm Bill Lesack. Gus and I hope you enjoyed the program and the usual musical selections. Our guest today has been Lisa Dawood. Did I pronounce that right?
It's Lisa Dawood.
Oh, Dawood. Mm-hmm. Our guest today has been Lisa Dawood. I got it right. What do you know? From Candy Consulting. And I want to thank you, Lisa, for your participation and your interesting comments on our program today. They were great. I was enthused. If I was planning something, I'd be all excited about it. And it was great. So, and I'd like to thank our listeners too for listening, and please tune in the same time next Tuesday. And until then, stay warm and have a great week. And now let's take it home with Vera Lynn singing. We'll meet again, and then stay tuned for the Hit the Big Wide Strum Pal coming up next.